Are you ready? Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's the answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple to, you're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
Liberal media is now reporting that President Biden has survived an assassination attempt. At least they're trying to paint his recent troubles as the equivalent to that of Donald Trump's. Now, MSNBC's Joy Reid criticized Donald Trump for stopping during an assassination attempt. She talked about the 9 seconds that went by as the former president pumped his fist in front of a crowd and said, "Fight, fight, fight." Now, she called it as an iconic photo op, suggesting that this was a staged event. But him surviving an assassination attempt and still going through with the original schedule of the RNC, it really showed a lot of strength for Donald Trump. Now, Joy Reid argued that at 81 years old, President Joe Biden getting COVID and then successfully healing within just a few days is exactly the same thing. Now, I gotta ask you guys, what do you think about that? Do you agree with Joy Reid on that one?
When they went to the Capitol and they were breaking into the Capitol, smashing windows, injuring police officers, why did it take you 3 hours to tell them to go home?
I don't believe it did. Oh, let me pull it out. I have to pull it out. So if you look at, on January 5th, the day before, I said, please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful. We're at a point now, we're getting so close. Let's just win it again and straighten out our country.
One other question on this.
You're not stupid at all, but you perhaps are given an agenda or you have an agenda. Look,
I was just saying there's no evidence of that election fraud. You did once tweet.
You're supposed to say that, but I'm glad you say that. But we have open borders. We have said, we'll give you soldiers, we'll give you National Guard, we'll give you whatever you want. And they turned me down.
You're
and in fact, she
defense
turned me down.
secretary.
She turned me down.
By the way, guys, hedge against inflation today. Text GOLD, G-O-L-D, to 800-405-GOLD. Get up to $5,000 of free silver. Click the link in the description down below or in the pinned comment. I urge you guys to call my friends over at Priority Gold to find out how they can help you to diversify your savings with physical gold. Also, by the way, if you haven't already, please take a second, hit the like button for the video, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for supporting and sharing these videos. You guys really do help me out. Now, just to make it really clear, infectious disease expert Dr. Peter Chin Hong confirms that the symptoms of COVID has changed throughout these past few years. According to him, it's pretty common to experience congestion, runny nose, headache, sore throat, and coughing when you get COVID nowadays. Basically, what Reid wants us to believe is that getting something like the common cold is the same as someone shooting you and nipping you in the ear. Really? She also wants to put the former president in the same light as Joe Biden, especially with their mental capacities. Now, as you guys know, Donald Trump, he attended the RNC just a few days ago after his life was almost taken, guys. Now, and instead of saying that it's good that he's alive, MSNBC's Joy Reid called him old. How insensitive is that?
MAGA, is this your king? If Joe Biden had given a rambling, shambling, all over the place speech like that, elected Democrats would be demanding that the 25th Amendment be invoked immediately. They would scramble, even worse than they are now, to jettison him as the candidate for president, and we would be questioning his mental acuity. Donald Trump went off that script for more than half of it. We had this text in front of us. He clearly was bored by the text and then became an old vaudevillian who much preferred his old shtick and was therefore reciting the shtick to the Daners. That was proof that there's not just one old man in the race. Donald Trump is an old man, clearly in decline. And we must start talking about him the same way that we are questioning Joe Biden, because Donald Trump cannot stay on message for even 5 to 10 minutes, even telling a story about the most traumatic moments of his life. He still eventually got to sharks. He got to Hannibal Lecter. He can't stop doing it Because if and I say this as somebody who absolutely adores senior citizens. They're my favorite people. But one of the things that happens when they begin to decline is that they go to safe places in their minds, stories that they're comforted by, that they remember and that they can recite, and they do it over and over again. Donald Trump is not a candidate that Democrats should be terrified of. Their terror is embarrassing tonight. MAGA, is this your king? That's what I got.
Do you guys agree that Donald Trump going off script within a speech is proof that he's just like President Joe Biden? I mean, did this speech indicate to you that he's suffering from the same mental conditions that we're seeing with President Joe Biden right now? Because I don't think that we've heard many doctors talk about the mental capacity of Donald Trump or lack thereof. Quadruple board certified neurologist Dr. Tom Pitts was also asked about President Joe Biden's condition and if he showed any red flags with his mental capacities. So Pitts says that he sees about 20 times a day in his clinic. He says that the president has a classic feature of neurodegeneration, which is basically a word finding difficulty. And it's not something where, someone just can't find the right words to say. It's more about the degeneration of the word retrieval area. So this is actually pretty serious. So he goes on to suggest further that President Joe Biden has one of the hallmarks of Parkinson's disease, which is shown by his body's rigidity. Now, if you guys ever watch Joe Biden go up and down the stairs, really not just Air Force One, but going up the stairs anywhere, whether it's on stage, on an airplane, he looks like he is like every step is so calculated and like his bones are so brittle that they're going to break. But of course, left-leaning media news outlets, they don't agree with experts who tell it like it is. They would rather stick to their script of what they believe is true. Now, CNN, they did a survey of a few people from Wisconsin regarding Donald Trump's RNC speech. And if we go by Joy Reid's narrative, these people should have said that this was an awful speech, right? That this speech showed them that Donald Trump is just as bad as President Joe Biden in terms of his mental faculties. But after watching it, none of them gave Donald Trump a failing grade for his speech. Now, sure, some of them gave him maybe a D, a C, but he got 2 A's out of the 13 people that were there, which means that either these people can't see what Reid is saying or what Reid sees, or she's trying to portray something that doesn't exist. I guess that could be more typical gaslighting from the left-leaning liberal media.
You're a Yale-educated attorney, and I want to get your take on what we saw happen last week, those immunity arguments before the Supreme Court, where Trump's team, his attorney, argued that a president could order the military to stage a coup and to have their political opponent assassinated and be immune from prosecution unless this theory that they were impeached and then convicted by the Senate. Do you share the view that presidents are basically above the law?
Look, Kaitlan, I think we have to be careful about imputing words into the president's attorneys that they didn't actually say. What the president's attorney said is that what the president's attorney said, Kaitlan, to be clear, is that there is a checks and balances system in our Constitution. Now, some things the president does, private acts, are liable to criminal penalties, but most of the things that the president does in their official duties, we have a system of impeachment. We have a system of checks and balances, the legislative branch that I'm a member of, the judicial branch. I did not read the president's attorneys as saying that the president could order a coup. The president's attorneys are saying that the constitutional checks and balances system would address that problem. And I think that's an important distinction.
But let me stop you right there, because I listened to this. It's John Sauer, Trump's attorney. And when he was asked by one of the justices if the president could order the military to stage a coup and would it count as an official act, meaning he couldn't be prosecuted for it, he said it would depend on the circumstances. I mean, what circumstances warrant a president ordering the military to stage a coup?
Well, first of all, he did say it depends on the circumstances, so that opens up a whole lot of avenue for context there. But more importantly, Kaitlan, he's just saying that would count as an official act.
But that's there are a number. That's an official act in your view too.
But could I finish the answer to the question, Kaitlan? An official act, there are a number of checks and balances in our system. There's the impeachment process. There's the budgeting authority that Congress has. There are a number of ways where Congress has a check and balance control over the president of the United States. All he's saying is that the criminal liability procedures that exist in this country don't cover the president's official acts. And by the way, how could anybody disagree with that, Kaitlan? Should Barack Obama be prosecuted for killing an American citizen via a drone strike? There are a number of examples in American history where if you apply the standard, the lawfare standard of the Biden administration against Donald Trump, it would make the presidency impossible to actually execute the law.
Yeah,
so
I know
in the
that's the
name of
argument
taking down, in the name of taking down their political opponent, Kaitlan, these guys are really pushing a legal theory that I think would destroy the presidency, whether a Democrat or Republican was in charge.
Now, we can understand that it was a little bit long. Sure, I believe it ran for about an hour and a half. But given the same context, do you believe that the president can do better than Donald Trump while giving a speech that long? I mean, seriously, can Joe Biden really do that? At the same time, this is after he survived a very traumatic event in his life. But despite the length of his speech, it convinced 4 out of 11 people in this panel to vote for him, which kind of defeats the idea that Joy Reid wanted to push on us. The idea that his speech showed an old man who's just like President Joe Biden, I think that argument just outright failed. But if you can give a speech and make undecided voters decide right then and there, that they would support you, then you for sure gave a solid speech. At least in my opinion. So, Donald Trump on his end, he's grateful for surviving this near-death assassination experience. Senator Lindsey Graham, he talked to the former president and found his optimism to be unbelievable. Senator Lindsey Graham also said that Donald Trump feels as if he has a new lease on life. And it's evident because he was supposed to give a completely different speech before the shooting occurred. Donald Trump said that he had an extremely tough speech prepared that talked more about the corrupt and the horrible administration of President Joe Biden. But after surviving in that rally, he changed his mind and threw that speech away. Now, many are saying that Donald Trump has more than ensured his victory for November. One odds maker gave him an 85% probability of winning it all toward the end of the year, with 2 factors now affecting the political landscape more than ever. Now, the first would be President Joe Biden's poor showing in the first debate, and the second is Donald Trump's brush with death during a rally. Now, moving on to the left, we got nothing but bad news, unfortunately. Sources close to the president have said that he's pissed off about the people who are pushing him to the sidelines. To date, more than 30 Democrats have now come out to basically say, step away, pass the baton, Biden. But now these calls have reportedly left the president feeling angry and betrayed by his own party. One source confirmed with NBC News that the president felt personally hurt by how Democrats within his own circle have left him out to dry, and they try to push him out of this race. But meanwhile, Donald Trump has all the momentum in the world with some of the best supporters right now backing him up. One of which is Vivek Ramaswamy. I did a previous video where I discussed Vivek's support for Donald Trump. In it, he also talked about the possible future of our country and how the next election would probably benefit from it. Anyway, guys, you got to check that video out after this one. If you haven't already, please hit the like button for the video, subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate you guys being here, and I'll see you on the next one.